I spent years avoiding adulthood. Every decision I made was based on fear. Fear of responsibility. Fear of money. Fear of the future. So I just didn't grow up until I had no choice. A hospital bed made sure of that. I used to think adulthood was something that just happened. Like one day I'd wake up and suddenly know how to do taxes, manage money, and make big decisions. But that day never came. Whenever I was faced with something that I didn't understand, like filing taxes, learning about mortgages or compound interest, I'd tell myself, I just don't feel like an adult. Those were things that adults knew how to do, and I didn't know how. And if I didn't know, then maybe I wasn't one. I avoided anything that felt like a big decision. I never got a credit card because I was scared of the responsibility surrounding it. What if I went over my limit? What if I ended up owing money that I couldn't pay back? Instead of learning how to deal with this, I just avoided it altogether. For years, I was scared to even go to sleep. Not because of nightmares, but because I was obsessed over whether I'd get enough sleep. I was so afraid of waking up tired that I'd overthink to the point of insomnia. Most people lose sleep over big life problems. I was losing sleep over the concept of sleep. It got to the point where I just flat out refused to make any morning commitments because I didn't trust myself to wake up for them. And on the rare occasions that I had commitments that forced me to be up early, I'd spend the entire night awake, paralysed by anxiety. This single fear shaped my life. I only worked jobs that started after midday, which meant most full-time jobs weren't even an option. My fear of adulthood was holding me back in more ways than I had even realised. When I finished school, I felt completely lost. Suddenly I was expected to know what I wanted to do with my life. Everyone around me seemed to have it figured out. Some had career paths mapped out, others had university plans. I had nothing. So I picked my college course by flipping through the college prospectus like it was a game of chance. The page that I landed on was the course that I was going to do. It landed on IT systems support. I didn't care. I just needed to be doing something. This only reinforced my feeling of not being an adult. I was just coasting. I didn't care about the course. I wasn't passionate about it. And before I knew it, it was over and I was lost again. Except this time, I was 18. Physically, an adult. But mentally, I wasn't even close. I spent the next few years doing everything that I could to avoid responsibility. I worked at a care home that my mum managed, and eventually I worked at several others as well. It was like stepping into a hidden world, a world full of people that society had moved on from. And in some ways, I felt like I had no place in the real world either. The job was rewarding in its own way, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wanted to be around people my age, so I quit. University became my next avoidance tactic. It wasn't about learning, it was about buying myself more time to delay adulthood, more time to avoid the real world, and I avoided it in every way possible. One year, my friend and I took turns ordering takeaway every single night. One night would be Chinese, the next would be Indian, then it would be pizza, and then back to Chinese again. By the end of the year, my Just Eat account said that I had ordered over 74 times. That means my friend had ordered about the same amount. That amounts to 148 takeaways. Each meal was roughly around £20, meaning that we had spent nearly £3,000 that year on takeaway. If we had decided to invest that money in the S&P 500 instead of ordering takeaway, we'd have almost £8,000 today. Instead, we just had empty boxes and mild regret. It's these sort of things I thought only adults knew. Understanding how to get a mortgage, getting a well-paid job, and saving for things I wanted always felt out of reach. Having to live at home only reinforced that feeling of not reaching mental adulthood. And the idea of taking on these responsibilities felt impossible. Only adults knew how to invest. And I wasn't an adult. Everything changed when I was hospitalised for my inflammatory bowel disease. I had spent 10 years waiting to feel like an adult. But lying in a hospital bed, I realised something. Waiting doesn't make things happen. You have to decide to act, or life will decide for you. I had spent years avoiding responsibility, convincing myself I wasn't ready. But if I kept avoiding things, I'd stay stuck forever. That was the moment that I made a promise to myself. I would stop waiting to feel like an adult. I was an adult. And it was time to start acting like one. That's partly why I make YouTube videos today. I talked about doing it for the past 17 years, but only recently did I actually take real action. Today, I make time and plan out my day. I actually work towards what I want, instead of just wishing things were different. For years, I thought motivation was the missing piece. But it turns out, consistency matters more than motivation. So I built habits, even when I didn't feel like doing them. Over the past year, I felt completely unmotivated towards making YouTube videos. Most of them performed terribly, but I still made videos week in, week out. I kept eating well and working out, even when I didn't want to, because I knew that if I waited until I felt ready, I'd be waiting forever. I've even started actively learning what once seemed overwhelming. Personal finances went from something that only adults understood to something that I needed to understand. I dove headfirst into the topic, watching YouTube videos on saving, investing, pensions, and compound interest. And now, I feel like I have a base level of understanding. An understanding that I wish I had at the age of 18 instead of 32. Problems don't just go away because you ignore them. They're solved because you face them head on and learn through doing. Nobody truly feels like an adult. We're all just stumbling through life, trying to make sense of it as we go along. I used to think that I wasn't ready for adulthood. Now I realise that you don't become ready. You just start acting like it. Avoidance held me back in so many ways, including something as basic as getting a good night's sleep. If you want to hear how I overcame that, then click this video here. I think you'll like it. Thanks for listening.